Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Wednesday, February the 22nd, 2023. It is now 6 p.m. and I call this San Juan Economic Development Corporation meeting to order. First item on the agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. All rise, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is our roll call. I'll start with Ms. Martha. Go ahead and identify yourself, ma'am.
Hi, Lauren Ramirez, Realtor.
For the EDC.
For the EDC.
Pete Morales, legal counsel for EDC.
Leonard Jona.
R.C. Flores, board member.
Guajardo, City Commissioner.
Arturo Guajardo Jr. Thank you all. Hello. We just did. Our next item is number 4, public comments. Ms. Martha? Nobody registered for public comments. Then we will move on to our next item. Do you want to go straight into executive session?
Yes, so we can take care of this item first, sir.
So you can try to get them out of here, and
Yes.
then we will continue?
Right.
Okay. Do I have a motion at this time to go into executive session?
No.
Okay, then we've got a motion. Do I have a second? And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The San Juan Economic Development Corporation will convene an executive session in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Running Statutes Code Annotated, Government Code Chapter 551071, consultation with attorney. The time is 6:03, and we're going into executive session. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is 6:53, and I am now reconvening this San Juan Economic Development Corporation meeting. Board members, is there any action to be taken out of executive session?
Mr. President, I'd like to direct our realtor, Mr. Ramirez, and do we need the attorney to get involved as well? Mr. President?
Yeah, he'll be involved.
Okay, both the attorney and Ms. Ramirez to proceed as discussed in executive session, please.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And just to clarify, this is item number 2 in our executive session, which says pursuant to section 551.087 economic development negotiations and 551.071 consultation with attorney, deliberation regarding the economic development incentive agreement between the San Juan EDC and Monarca Investment Group. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Estamos listos y van a proceder aquí con nuestro abogado, ¿ok? We will now go back to our regular items, which is item 5.1, discussion and possible action, if any, on downtown revitalization plan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's the item that we always have here with us. We have Mr.
Brian
Godinez, Ms. Kelly, Mr. Tom.
Would you all like to approach the podium? We're on your item. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
First off, good evening. Brian Godinez with ER Architects. I want to apologize for walking in. I did not know your meeting had started. I feel bad that I walked in going, Joe's ready? Because it looks so casual, so I apologize for that. So we're here to present our 50% schematic design set of the Genesis project, reminding you all that the Genesis project is U.S. Business 83, Nebraska down to 9th Street. And the 50% schematic set, as you recall from the last meeting, gets you closer to a shovel-ready project. All that's missing is the finalization to get to 100%, unless John can take it as it exists today, because there's a lot of work that we've done. It's beyond 50%, but we still haven't finalized cost estimates or a project schedule. And we have some interesting observations about construction cost schedules that we want to talk to you about. But what we'd like to do, so that you can review it, is that what we're seeking is approval to proceed, so we can get 100% done by April, 90% by April the 3rd, and 100% by April 11th. Yes. Yeah, 100% by April 11th. So we want to show you now. What you're also going to see is a nice preview of what the TxDOT set would look like. It's just longer. Because it's a longer block as part of the 1 mile planning set that we're doing. So with that, I'd like to bring you all over here behind me, and we'd like to walk you through what we've done, if you're okay with that.
Fine, sure.
Okay. and then hopefully we can get permission to move forward.
So y'all remember Stephen Walker? He's with Site Work, and Kelly Mellon, who's with Mellon and Hunt. They are the principal architects of the drawings that we have in front of you here. What we haven't started yet are the renders. We're waiting for approval of this. We start with renders, so you can see a visual interpretation, color, almost photoreal of what this looks like from an area perspective, and also the area from where's the city street?
Here.
Yeah, from the perspective of from about here to here, if you were standing on the street, what would that look like? Where you can see the city hall, et cetera.
So, City Hall is there, so these are the same, actually. This is the same thing from the city street here, and then
Here's your city hall right here. Here's your new fire station right here. Where am I? Oh, I'm right here.
Yeah, these are the same
I keep
streets.
forgetting
No,
the
it's okay. So City Hall is under construction, new fire station,
Right.
and existing City Hall.
Yeah, so we're gonna do renders of an aerial view of this perspective, and then we're gonna do a render of you were looking this way and looking this way, and what it would look like in terms of everything that we laid out here for you. So we still owe you that cost estimates and the project schedule. We're developing the cost estimates and the project schedule if you want a block at a time in terms of construction. So if you look at starting from here, and did one block, and then did the second block, and the third block, and the fourth block. And we're gonna give you cost estimates for that. Just so you know what it is. So we're close to cost estimate. Right. And you thought we would talk to John and Joe inside executive session, what constitutes shovel ready, and he said cost estimates and project schedule. So we talked about that. We're close.
And actually what we had, and I said Ryan was correct, but I was off. We had the 90% that we're turning in on March 13th, which is a little over 2 weeks.
Oh, that's right. Did I say April?
Yeah.
I meant April.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
so if we're at 90%, we'll actually be turning into you guys on March 13th, and then the following week setting up another meeting like this. But with that, we can definitely turn in a cost estimate. And that's part of one of the things we're actually speaking with staff about right now, because pricing is kind of all over the place, right? Like, depending on if we were to do something with the project to build it like 2 months from now, or the end of this year, or 2 years. And so kind of like, what's the best way that we can set that up in the estimate to help cover that? So we kind of iron that out a little bit right now, so that'll give us an opportunity to roll that in there. And then we can turn that in on March 13th with a 90% set. And then that'll give, and meanwhile, John and I have already started talking on a couple of things, and Steve and I have already been putting estimates together, so that'll give us a chance to kind of roll some of that extra info in there and make sure we've got it covered for you guys.
So we're going to try to get everything to you that we think John and Renee would need by early March, if not sooner. We know that you need it as a priority. But before we do that, why don't we walk through, like I forgot this is the landscape, and this is the improvement layout right here. Why don't I get them to come walk through this so you can see what we're doing here from a visual standpoint? What does this mean? What does this mean? And what does all this stuff over here mean? Who wants to lead that? Kelly or Steven? You want to do it? Steven? Why don't you start? Okay.
Kids start, yeah. Sorry, I'm making my notes.
Kind of breaking it down analytically, what we have is this currently under construction where the new city hall is going to be. These planters, these three, are actually part of another project. So we're inheriting
Yeah, well, yes. Yes. Oh, okay. For you 100%. It's gonna be initial each page, and then these two. I can get them. I can put it in. All of them. You have a highlighter? I can highlight. What time is it? I'm not even sure. Figured how does it? Are you leaving? That's why he's an attorney. We should have done it in there. You know. No, I asked, but he had to be approved. It was almost.
Typically a bus stop here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bus stop. It could be a bench or it could be
because everything they're saying you like. He's on Bruce right now. That's why last time I sat on there, said, "Did you see me?" This time I didn't have a choice because he always tells me how you do.
You go from 5th Street all the way down to 9th Street as per state ADA compliance and tax, which is Texas accessibility standards. So what we're eliminating is these mid-block steps, and we're putting that step at the back of the curb. We talk about this, there's a typical section we have that shows that step at the back of the curb as it steps up. That's a more anticipated step up. It would be
on the road side of the curb?
No, sir, behind the back.
It would
Behind
look
the back
more
of the curb.
here.
How high is that? Will it
So
be very?
it would look more like where you are here. So like you get out of the car, this is your right. So you expect to like step on the curb and then you can step up again. Versus right this second, you've got a couple of areas where like step up on the curb, you have like 2-3 feet, and then you can go up again, and then you don't have like a guardrail.
More immediate.
It's more immediate, right? So it's where you're used to having to do like extra steps or effort to get to that level.
And if you notice, those steps are painted red, people don't trip over, but they're not anticipated. The safest place would be to have them to be the back of the person step up. And you look at this diagram right here, this talks about a typical section through that sidewalk. There would be a paver at the face of the building, that would help in constructability, as well as a paver at the back of the curb, either back of the step or just the back of the curb and gutter. And underneath that, what we actually do is provide for PVC conduit that would allow for us to run piping all the way across each city block for future lighting. We actually do an electrical pull box, both ends of the block, and one in the center where it was needed or anticipated. What we're working on now, lighting is actually called out as an element. It's just one of the streetscape elements that we pull into. It could be a different pedestrian light.
I like that idea of those steps. You get more real estate as far as it's a lot fatter as far as with ADA.
Right. And then like you come out of the doorway, after the doorway, you can still actually move your car and do what you can do with it. Oh,
That's 5 feet if you need. Come out of the doorway.
But not in there. What? Yeah, but you're recording right now here. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's too much of an elevation difference between where the buildings are at and the road itself. And ideally, you don't want to raise the road. Obviously, it's going to create huge costs. And doing things with the buildings, then the other alternative is we do more ups and downs on the sidewalks. But really, that kind of starts to get a little out of hand and ends up costing money.
very limited. Once you get past 7th Street, that doesn't occur. Okay. So anyway, we're actually repeating this with handicap crossings that have the truncated domes. The sidewalk would actually go up and down to meet the threshold of the buildings. That way, it is on a slope that's 8%. So you never really feel it. And if you're in a wheelchair, you can navigate that very easily too. Of course, again, you got your crossings, only where there's signalized locations. You've got your planters and your turnouts on each block. At the fire station, we actually had to avoid this area. It's got one planter here, here, and here, but not one here to compete with the fire operations. And then again, on the last block, you typically have the same thing that repeats itself and goes to the end. On the landscape side of it, what I had considered was palm trees for that skyline effect, for that grand roadway that we're looking at. You can go to Wesco and see something similar, but in locations where we could afford it, I would actually try to put in some shade trees. And these would be areas, you know, that would start to cool it down a little bit more of a different texture to it. But primarily, there's a lot of palm trees. Palms don't have that much shade, so that's still something we could talk about. But what I was after was that skyline.
And what kind of palm trees?
Are we talking,
I would say maybe a single texan, and then on height.
The other pages
When you pull up to this intersection, you look left and right. You look to the left.
Okay, because I need to find out.
You see shrubs and vegetation. In fact, these planters, in the narrative is spelled out that these planters would have low-growing ground cover, and they would not be put in unless they naturally grew below 30 feet. You're in an empty pit, you pull up, you look left, park at the front. You can't see over the hedge, you don't know. So if that hedge is naturally a low ground cover, it's a ground cover, it's very prostrate to the ground, you'll see over 30 inches. What is the height of the planter? The planter's 6 inches. So
Yeah, so
very
it's,
slow.
just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea, I mean, this isn't exactly right, but like to give you a little bit better idea.
Very low. I wouldn't put a shrub in or specify a shrub that gets any higher than 30 inches at purity. Okay, but if I'm in a semi-tractor trailer rig and I pull up, and I look at the hedge of the palm or the tree, so that's why we say it's got to be a tree that's got to have a certain caliber and a height minimum height. Yes, what you see right here, you see a good height on the vegetation where you see under. So that height is good. So you buy a 4-inch caliber, 6-inch caliber, live oak, let's say, it's good shape, to bring you around. But the canopy on the tree has to be high enough for a trucker to see everything. So all you're looking at is a pole, like a telephone pole, on a palm tree. And then everything below that is below 30 inches. So you maintain that integrity and safety for the traffic coming in. What you got is a one-way street, and you're going to have right turns. Your visibility is critical. I could put in higher shrubs here, it wouldn't really matter, because you're not looking back, you're looking left. But in this situation, we'll try to stick to it. Now, the idea is what vegetation we do use, we're trying to butterflies and hummingbirds and very low maintenance material that is adapted well to the Rio Grande Valley, or it's very well. These would all be drip irrigated, so you never see a drip system on the subsurface. We low water, we run by the hour down the main, and we are based on controllers that can be programmed month to month. The pavers, what we're looking at on the sidewalks themselves, I'm going to get back to that a little bit. This is up against the building. When you're pulling the concrete away from the buildings, you may have an impact on the building for damage. So we're pulling that away. And
I'm not gonna also want it. They were
with stucco or old clay brick pavers or clay.
Sir, thank you for that
They
information.
have a problem that we know of, so rising.
I'm sorry, Mr. Juan didn't let me go and answer.
Comes up next to the building that actually rattles. If these pavers are put in with sand, what happens is it just dries that out before it gets to the building. So it's a plus for the buildings, and it makes it much more constructible, because you're going to cut the concrete, pull the concrete away. And you're just going to put up little breaks at the base of it, underneath that. The threshold would probably stop, and you'd have a ramp going into the doorway. But at the back of the a while putting pavers in, but they're very expensive. We could use them where it counts and just give some delineation with the pavers for color.
Right.
And they could be a red or they could be a brown. But in the concrete area, what we can see putting there would be a stained concrete. It would be a concrete that's got a mix in it. It's color, and it would go in like a beige, like a tannish beige. And then we'd actually, once that's finished, we do a salt shake on top of it. So it would actually hit the brand new concrete with the size of the salt. And in time, when you finish it, you wash that out. And it leaves kind of a blemished concrete surface that makes it look more empty, not so much brand new. And to me, that complements the whole city block. And as we go north of Business 83, you've got the lower buildings. So you've got a new concrete surface with an antique look.
Would that give it a texture to where when the surface is wet, you would have more of a grip on it?
Definitely. It'd be a broom finish, like you do on standard concrete. But these pits wouldn't be any more than, say, a 16th to an 1/8 inch, about the size. You ever made ice cream and you use a rock salt? That's what you would use to make this pitting material.
We all know the ice cream, right?
The rock salt simply just melts away when you hose it off after the concrete's dry. And so the purpose of it is to give a blemish to a brand new concrete surface, and then again it would be roof finish. But using concrete on, say, 90% of the job would save a lot of money, and it would still give us that antique look that we're after. Pavers are around $80, $90 a square yard. Brick or colored texturized concrete or concrete with warp top is going to be closer to, say, 55 and 75. I'm giving you numbers, but it all depends on when it gets let down, of course. So it saves a lot, probably about 20–30% of what pavers. And again, you can look at city blocks where they've just gone wild with pavers. They get very expensive fast, and I think it would blow the budget every year. We can look at numbers and give you options, but to do something that's effective and cost effective, that's what I'm presenting to you now. Okay.
And some of what we're also trying to add in here, which of course you can't really see on this level, is like in the section of Nebraska right now, we've got a couple of pothole areas that need to be repaired. So identifying the sections so we can get that incorporated in there as well, and then do an overlay on the project. So you don't spend all this money on the sides, and then we have the street in the middle that needs some work, which
incomplete.
Correct, and that way you've got a complete kind of finished look going all the way across instead of piecemealing between.
Yeah.
We've gone as far as to try to identify existing trees with the survey, and we've actually got small planters to try to allow those to stay in place. I think these are small enough to be able to do that. If we're going to lose anything, it may be something in this area. I'm not sure how much that would be effective. Otherwise, we're pretty much keeping them in. These two trees actually fall within the limits of the curb and gutters, so they may be hard to keep in place. These are two concretes, I believe.
And we are, and I'm sorry, you might have said this already, Stephen. In that stretch, basically where Old City Hall is at and going south, we are calling out to redo the existing curb and gutter and widen it. That you probably haven't noticed this, and now that I've pointed out, you're going to notice it more. As you're going south on Nebraska, the paving kind of starts to shrink down a little, so that way it'll give us an even width all the way down, so that way your driving lanes will be consistent going all the way down and help us keep the parallel parking.
Because currently it's right there, so this should go down.
Yeah, you can see
right here currently.
Yes, you can see the dash line. That's the current curb and gutter.
From Business 83
you can see we're pushing it from the back of the uniform. Sidewalks will be the same width. Curb and gutter is here at the same location from 9th Street all the way up to
City Hall. Do you feel like it's getting
so we're going to widen the road.
Are you guys taking any of this new fire station into consideration? Big trucks driving in and out of here?
Yeah.
Maybe concrete here or something?
And actually,
rip up that blacktop.
that is one of the things that we're going to be updating once we start the traffic study portion of it as well. Because like right this second, we show the 4-foot median coming down, and like here we pulled it back to clear this already. But what we really need to do is, with the traffic study, go through each of the different intersections, and like this area here, in this area here, where we have the buses coming in for the transit center, and make sure we've got all of that addressed. So we might be making some modifications to some of those items.
That's a good point, and they brought that up, so like right here.
Yeah.
I'm a firefighter with Record Profession, that's what I do for a living, and they bring in a tanker truck,
concrete's gonna be great, that little dip right there is gonna be, yeah.
You might talk about drainage too, Kelly.
Oh, sure. And actually this you can see because we brought in the new fire station pretty easily. Where we're redoing the drainage, of course, already with the fire station project. What isn't tied in on here yet, but we have shown, is new inlet locations. The plan here and what we have already looked at is where existing infrastructure is at. So there's basically some sort of storm line close to pretty much all of those for us to get them connected to. But then we're adding inlets like in these areas where we're adding the bulb outs to help collect the drainage here so we don't have to do like what you see in some of these pictures with like the sidewalk chutes as part of the travel way.
These type C or type B?
Type C. So these will all be type Cs in the corner, so they'll be at the top of pavement level and not a type A up in the sidewalk area. And then, so I don't have on here, and it was also for the sake of being able to see this a little bit better, like there's storm lines already coming down Nebraska. So we need to get it, go in and get all those connected together. But we're adding those in pretty much all the areas where we've got the intersections and the planter areas of the bulb outs. Because right, the second drainage comes around the corner. And we're kind of like impeding that by adding the bulb outs in there. So that is something that we have addressed. It's just not connected and shown on here to that degree. And part of it is we wanted to make sure everybody's okay with the way we have things shown as far as bulb outs at the corners and that sort of stuff before we went super nuts with getting everything connected. But we also want to make sure if we're showing something that we can do it, we can actually get it connected.
So we're seeing bulb outs, we're seeing sidewalks and planters. We're not seeing lighting or seeding.
Correct.
Or signage.
Or signage.
It's coming.
But it's coming.
Yes.
There are still issues we're trying to solve.
Okay.
Like for instance, separate from that, we're still trying to figure out how.
There's still a consideration.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
We're still trying to figure out U-turns. We're trying to solve that here so we can solve that with TxDOT. So TxDOT will approve this to look like that up there. We're still trying to figure out, remember the spiritual monuments? We haven't forgotten that. In fact, they're going to start design tomorrow. We've got a brand new set of ideas about those stained glass monuments. We know we can't put them on the median. Right. So now we're looking at the bulb outs and to see how they're going to fit with the corners. So we're trying to solve that. We're also looking at this too. We're trying to see if we can actually do these little gated, what do they call them? I forget what they're called, Stephen. Gateways. We're still looking at maybe wanting to do one there at the beginning of Genesis and one up north. So there's still things that we're still trying to solve.
Typically, some of the things we talked about the monuments is, you remember what I told you when you pull up at this intersection, you're going to look left because this is one way. So as you look left, to the right is not that critical. So that's a good location for one of those monuments, as well as mid-block. It's not going to impede with traffic. They're going to be behind a barrier curb or a curbing gutter, so they're protected. When you're made out of material, say if we put the same material on the median, then the chances of them getting hit. Right, so there need to be a breakaway, or there'd be something that wouldn't be a fixed object.
It'll be one more reason for TxDOT not to approve this set.
So what we do here, we know we're going to transfer to the north of Business 83. So with TxDOT allow maybe a monument in these planters, I think the chances are a lot higher than in the median. Okay, let me just talk about these planters. Another bonus to those is that if you look at the curbing gutter, it's continuous behind it. So there's no inlet required here because this drains down the curbing gutter. Nobody's going to step from the sidewalk into the planter. There's no need. So that curbing gutter could be there. So it's a little valley between the two. You can see it in some of these pictures, but it allows for drainage along this whole line. So if water's flowing from here to this inlet, you don't need an inlet here. You just need one here so water can flow all the way down. But this allows water to pass through. Okay, that's not the situation here to here. So we may even need inlets. In some of these, if water's going here, it's not going to be able to wrap around, so it'll have to be here to here and tie into the trunk line.
I like that idea better, so do the wraparound.
Doing the wraparound?
No, for it, not wraparound.
Oh, yes, no. Yeah, it's never going to, if it flows to this corner, it's going to be difficult, so this is ground. So you know the water's going to stand here, it's not going to really flow around. So these alleviate that issue, and then drainage would alleviate it to what Kelly's going to provide to you. So what Brian was saying on the monuments, is we do have some good candidate areas because of the traffic safety here. This is an acceptable location. And we've got several of those along the way. we've got several mid-block planters. And again, they're behind the same curb and gutter, they're protected. So if we do the same thing, we ask TxDOT, hey, what about here? Then the chances are we'll hire this to get authorization.
I thought I heard you say during your speech the other day that you might incorporate one of those things at the front of the city hall. Monument or no, or
You're talking about the spiritual monuments or the gateway?
no, something that connects everything together.
You're talking about, if we're still going down the path of stations across? Yes. But the challenge is that if we start Genesis before TxDOT, do we start the first station across this way or do we start everything this way? That's a good point. We have to think about that. We have to think in that perspective. We think it's probably best to start up north because you're coming from the facility going this way. Yeah.
They come out and they're gonna.
Right. And so I think the last thing on this entire project will probably be the monuments.
Yeah.
I want to talk, I'm going to interrupt the flow for just a second. I want to sort of think ahead here for just a minute. We were talking about this earlier. We know we are on your agenda tonight on the TxDOT schematic set to start that process. What you're seeing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're doing a lot of detailed schematics. If anything, this almost is like we're about 20-30% in the construction step. That's how quickly we're moving into this. The good thing is, when we solve all the issues that are going to be up north and we get this finished, we can move pretty quick on the rest of the TxDOT area up north. So we were thinking about schedule-wise, so I'm going to just jump a little ahead here on something. So we know that we targeted April the 3rd to have 100% ready for us to seal and deliver, and then submit the final on April the 11th. If you give us the go-ahead to get TxDOT started on the TxDOT schematic set, we could deliver the 50% North Nebraska TxDOT set by the time we deliver the 90% set here for this set, for Genesis. And then by first week in May, we can deliver the entire 100% of the TxDOT set with this already submitted and done. So you'll have everything schematic laid out, all problems solved, ready for TxDOT to start negotiating any issues we think we're going to get. If TxDOT gives us the green light and we can move forward, we can have the entire construction set of all of Nebraska done by the end of the summer. Ready for construction block by block. Whether you want to start up here or you start down here. That's your call. And you'll have cost estimates, and you'll have renders, you'll have sketches of the monuments, and you'll have project schedules all laid out by May.
The only thing we won't have is money.
Well, if you think about it,
Which is why I'm trying to
and that's why we talked to
John's right now.
That's why we talked to John and we talked to Renee. One of the things they told us was they need a project description sheet. So we did a project description sheet. So everything you've heard verbally tonight, we laid it out in a narrative format. Sent it to you and Ben, and forwarded it to John and sent it to Renee.
Okay.
So that you got a narrative combined with this, combined with a cost estimate and schedule.
And did Renee give you an indication as to what he's trying to go after?
He did not.
Where
He did not, but he said he was going to talk to Ben.
Okay, and I'll follow up with him.
Yeah.
Let me kind of add to what Brian was saying. I dealt with TxDOT for 30 years. We built a lot of enhancement projects. There were streetscape projects, and high bikes, safe routes to schools, providing sidewalks to schools. Some of those are 80-20%, some are 50-50, some are 100%. Safe routes to schools is 100%. We still have programs under it. But everything Brian described is what you need to make an application. Everything is there. Because of the
You should be bringing, here's what I suggest you do. Sometime between now and you can get them to come down here for half a day, or we go up there, we need to walk them through this. We need to get in front of Terry, we need to get in front of Chewy, we need to get in front of Oscar, and we need to walk them through this vision when we get closer to 100%.
I agree.
And just show them what we're doing. And Renee can set that up.
He can.
Yeah.
What's critical is to get go ahead with the concept that we got to use the tools we're using. That's what we heard talk about leadership. So we need to solve these problems that we've got to make this a success. If we've got the authorization to go ahead and use the same tools and apply them all the way out.
That's why we're on this agenda tonight, to get you guys on as quickly as possible. And then if you start getting inclinations or even signals that you can get some funding, let's get the construction set done. So then you're ready to take the
Yes, they would do Genesis as an off-system project. They would let that, not for free. Whatever the estimate is, they have that. What you get.
It's just gonna be this one, every page, but I'll go with you. Like the middle one, wherever, either one. Okay, he'll be, and then assign, and that's it. Signature. And then I'll execute it. Here. There's nothing there. Not here. No. This was the commission that was previously.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just here.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Juan comes on it too?
I think they just said the president.
Just the president. He likes that. He gets very happy. He's kind of spoiled by us. When we get the meeting here. Especially
Recommending that's the route we take.
Yes.
It sounds like that's
It's
what
the
we
fastest,
do.
best, most accurate, most tested,
Yeah.
solid, ready to go.
Right.
That's why I wanted him to explain that to you.
If a contractor doesn't finish on time, he pays liquidated damages to the state. So it's very well organized. We don't like that. We work with contractors, but it makes them be diligent in what they're doing. You know, they can't say, well, I've only got 5 people, you know, but we'll hire some more. It's not our problem.
Now, you can also the priority when they only have the 5 people.
The good news is that Stephen's gonna be able to try to solve anything TxDOT pushes back on. We solve it in Genesis, then we take it up north, and then we present it to TxDOT. With what we hope is about every issue they're gonna push back on, we have solved it for them. We already know U-turn's an issue, so we're trying to solve that with the traffic study and what we're gonna do on these intersections.
TxDOT's a stakeholder because they're as concerned about south of Business 83 and safety as they are north of it, and 88. That's why they offer funding to do that, off-system projects. But, you know, the state system is from business north, and once they see that we've set this up in their format and under their language, they're going to be able to read and accept it really easy.
It's mirrored.
Yes. So they are a stakeholder, and they're very much interested in seeing Nebraska being ADA compliant on their right of way from business all the way to H2. If you look at what we've done in the past, I'm going to blame on some of that. All we did was corners. We didn't do mid-blocks. The mid-block sections to do the whole district and make the whole district in every city of every sidewalk ADA compliant was more money than we could ever wish for. So what we did do is we got enough money to make it where we can cross people at intersections. So that's all we were able to afford to do. So to look at a city that comes to TxDOT and says, hey, we want ADA compliance between 9th Street and H2, they're going to be a game player. They're going to want that too, because it's mobility that they're after. And mobility is not just vehicles, it's pedestrians. So it's a win-win for the city as well as TxDOT, no doubt.
So we think we're getting closer to solving the challenge of how do we get that money that's up north to come down here. We still got to get it down here to spend money down here. So even though we're going to create this beautiful yellow brick road, we still got to deal with the businesses. We still need to talk about awnings. We need to talk about facades. We need to talk about consistency, colors, and things like that. That still needs to be addressed as well.
Public involvement.
Yeah.
If you're going to apply for these grants, public involvement is a big part of it.
We need to be thinking about maybe creating some kind of grant ability to be able to get your businesses to be able to spruce up and make up their front facades. Yeah, something like that. Because that's just the street too, man. Remember, a lot of people don't look down, they're looking side by side at those buildings.
Before TxDOT would allow their project to be built, there would have to be a series of public involvements where you go door to door and you advertise throughout the city to have people come in, look at what we've just talked about today and give comments. And to hear those comments and take them serious.
All right, then we talk about the business along Nebraska?
Every
Or the entire community?
The entire community would be what TxDOT would require. Now, this is off system. TxDOT doesn't require it, but it's the city.
In schematics or in construction set?
Well, it needs to be part of, I guess, the schematic approval.
Okay.
Now, again, it's a city call.
I'll put some budget in there in our proposal. talk a little bit about that, how we get the business to the, how we get your constituents to.
Yeah, definitely on the tech side portion, if you're gonna get any federal or state funding, it's a requirement.
One event?
No, sir, I think it's what, 3?
Great.
You afford an opportunity. They don't have to come.
It's
I mean,
like
that
a-
I mean, if there's nobody there, but try.
Yeah, there's usually more of us than there are in the public.
Right.
But
But we
that's
just have to
many
be
times
honest.
where you're in Brownsville, and you're ripping up the streets in Brownsville, and somebody comes and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're replacing sidewalks." "Well, I didn't know anything about it." I said, "Well, okay, do you read the paper yet?" "Well, there was an advertisement for public involvement. You could come in and give us your comments then. If you don't like it, I mean, you can always write a letter, but we're past that. I'm building because I got a contract." And I've seen people upset, I've seen people delightful in that, well, I didn't know, okay? So, but the public involvement, the affording the public involvement is just, I think I was telling somebody earlier today, TxDOT has no secrets. They try to tell everybody what they're doing up front, so there's no controversy. And the public could come in and say, "Hey, did you ever think about," and we're like, "Hey, no, we didn't." You know, that's something we need to solve.
I'll tell you more a little bit about that in the next agenda item. So what we want from you all, with your permission, is to give us permission to proceed. We want to get to 100%. We're working with John now. We're going to get him all the tools he needs to go after your grant sources in terms of narrative and visual. So we're going to get him that. It may be in early stages and ultimately at a later stage, but he's going to start. He's already getting stuff from us.
Good. That's good to me. Any questions?
Well, one thing, Kelly, did you mention that there will be some asphalt that we're gonna have to do?
Yes, yeah, we talked about that with the asphalt repair and the overlay work.
Yeah, okay, so that's a little more than just sidewalks, it's
Right.
the street.
Which is not on this, and then really what you don't see on here that isn't forgotten and is included in the narrative is that the paving repair, the overlay work, the benches, the monuments, and the lighting. And really the main thing is the drainage connections. I need the survey work to identify the pothole area, paving repair sections. So that's on the schedule for my office. So once I get that, then I can get that added in. Our other main thing is making sure we have the areas identified for the monuments, and then once we kind of have that laid out, then that lets us come back in and do the fill-in part for where we have availability to put the benches in and put the lighting in. But it is still on the books, which is why we have it in the narrative, which is what he's got for his spending stat, and it's also included in the images still of what is being used for some of that. It just isn't here yet because we want to make sure all of this was good before we.
A month from now, you're going to see all this.
You'll see the rest of it.
We want to come back with you all in a month. We're going to grade you 90% set. We're going to grade you our vendors.
Parking is 80 parking, parallel. What we did on the side streets doesn't affect parking. We have a few existing entries into private properties that were grandfathered, so we kept those in place. There's 12 planters. There's 12 stations to the cross. I don't know if they're all here. But,
Yeah, we're not going in this direction, by the way. We're going in a different direction. We're going to do one that we think is going to be TxDOT friendly and also still have the wow that we want in terms of people seeing it. But we're going a different path. So if you guys, if you don't mind, we would love for you to make a motion to give us approval to proceed.
One question, sir. So all this talk, it's not going to be two-phase project. I know you guys are just working on Genesis, but once we get the construction done to the actual, we're thinking about construction to one project, not to one.
We're going to give you both sets for the entire Nebraska by the end of the summer. If you give us permission, we'll do a CD set for the entire Nebraska Avenue, and we'll give you a project schedule, and you can go block by block, cost by cost, block by block. Do them all, or do one block at a time, based on your budget. At that point. Yeah, it'll be your decision to
But
decide.
we're telling them to proceed with plans for everything.
But
What I'm referring to is we're focusing on plans for the Genesis, for only construction, and then move on, or we're thinking plans for everything.
The whole thing.
And then that's
Yeah.
where I wanted to
and
get
then you
clear.
decide from there.
but the formatting to the plans is critical. If
Yes.
you do it piece at a time, it'll be piece at a time, and you let it, you go to bidding. So every time you bid in the paper and you have bid openings and you award and you have all the financial financial issues involved in doing one. You're gonna multiply it every time you repeat that. But if you let it in one, you would only have one letting.
But if we get text out involved, we're doing one whole project.
That's assuming you have the funding.
Funding is the key.
Assuming you have
But
the
funding
funding.
is the key here. How much funding we can come up with, which will for sure
I
know
already told
what
you
we're
all,
doing.
that he mentioned earlier budget, we're thinking we're gonna be somewhere in $1.5 million per block. That's kind of the budget, we're trying to see if we can come in under, but the challenge for us is how much contingency, escalation to add to that. I'm not to add to the $1.5 million, that's built in there. If we can go lower, we go lower, if we get a sense of where the construction market is gonna be. We're trying to cover you all as much as possible for an unpredictable market several months or a year.
That's why I'm saying one of the most important components here is trying to tackle this in that one. You know, all this is just dreaming.
And then move as quickly as you can.
Well, in the preparation of the plan, let it piece by piece. You can have a cover sheet for each one, some standards, some general runs. All these are separate, so it's going to take time to build each component, compared to the done order.
The way I'm envisioning this is we let the whole Genesis project at one, and then we deal with the rest of it. That's how I'm envisioning it. Not block by
And
block.
maybe not the ones, we'll wait on the ones, till you text us. Maybe.
Right. It all needs to be approved first.
Yeah. Assuming we went down that spiritual stations of cross route, which we're looking at an option not to do it that way.
Not to do it.
Yeah, maybe another option.
Just have 4 blocks. We're looking at 6 mil. But it would definitely help to bring those individuals that you mentioned earlier, so they can see it themselves.
I think you're gonna have to go to them during the session, you probably have to go up there.
We really do, man.
Yeah, you need to go up there. You need to take Stephen and Kelly and go up there, and John and Renee, and just go and meet with Senator, meet with Terry, and do what we just did here. We try to find a hotel room or a conference room, and just spread it all out for them and let them see it.
You do it quick.
Just gotta be sure you all are available. We gotta take them. They still have to go.
Who is it, Captain?
Mark, can you make the motion?
We'll have our meeting.
So we know we wanna entertain a motion to let them proceed as we just discussed? No, for them to go ahead.
You have the funds to pay us to proceed.
There you go. Oh, I like it, I like it. Yeah, make the motion to proceed as discussed.
A motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried unanimously. We may proceed.
Okay, so now we have a second item, right? And that's to authorize you to negotiate with me on the schematic set for the text dot park.
Yes.
I'm trying to help you.
So we got item 5.2, discussion of possible action, if any, on proposal to produce the Nebraska Avenue textile schematic design roll plot set.
Which is like this, except it's the rest of the press. Yeah.
I was like, she's trying to be here and.
You have
Third item, does it also refer to them? No.
No.
So we'll sit down and we'll get to the heart.
Yes, my husband's still driving me.
I'm the garter of the kitchen. I'm the garter of that one. Two, got it.
Did you get?
Okay, so I've got another one over here.
That's what you got. That's why they got to see it. Oh, everything else.
Wait for Pedro.
Yes.
Okay, they've got it good.
Oh, that's in here? Can you get it out for me?
The first year.
I know, man.
First couple of months. Do it.
Not even in my. I haven't even gotten our first year yet.
Lauren Ramirez? Okay.
So what am I gonna do? Meetings. All right, with this guy.
Our last item to be discussed, board members, is item 5.3, discussion and possible action regarding settlement offer for the unpaid judgment that we've discussed in executive session on multiple occasions. Counselor?
As you all may be aware, we have the debt from Mr. Villanueva. We've gone back and forth with collection plans. I discussed that with the board in executive session where we stand. If you all want to go back and discuss, we can. Otherwise, I have a name from Mr. Nava as a cashier check right now, as necessary. If you all would like to take the vote to accept that settlement.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. And then we can ask for further discussion if you want.
Well, I was just
Well, you
wondering
weren't
what
around.
I would. Yeah.
Well, we had I'll catch you up in a little bit.
Everybody agreed last time.
Yes, sir.
We got the concerns regarding collection, so we figured take the money right now while we could before we have more issues with him either.
Okay.
Pending bankruptcy, you know, stuff.
Yeah, correct.
What is the amount? I didn't even.
20.
20,000. Okay.
It's lower than the amount that was owed since 2012.
Taking a chance that we don't end up with anything at the end, you know? So, it wasn't the best deal, but.
20,000, 20,000.
I mean, yeah.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Appreciate
You
it.
got a motion to adjourn? And a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Meeting is now adjourned.